We're ranking all 13 of the Halloween movies in the Halloween franchise, so come on in. Let's get it. What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Seth Grimes, and today we're doing something fun. We're going to rank all 13 of the Halloween movies in the Halloween franchise. This coming off of the heels of the release of Halloween Ends, the controversial release of Halloween Ends. And it is, after all, the Halloween season, my favorite time of the year. And Halloween is certainly one of, if not my favorite, horror franchises. So it's perfect, and I'm excited to go ahead and get into this. Just a reminder, though, that this is my list. These are my opinions. This is ranked based on me solely, my own personal likes and my own personal dislikes. This has nothing to do with your likes or your dislikes. This is not ranked definitively as this is the very best and this is the very worst. This is just me and how I feel. Feel free to add your opinions in the comments below, but don't be a dick face about it. Let's just have some fun and let's rank these bad boys. Kicking off this list at number 13, at the very bottom, my opinion, the very worst Halloween movie ever made of all time ever is Halloween 5. Look, I have a very special place in my heart for the Halloween franchise, but there's no room in there for this movie. Halloween 5 is by far, in my humble opinion, the worst Halloween movie of all time. They took everything great that Halloween 4 set up, all the cliffhangers, all the new storylines that they could go with, all the different angles they could have approached, and just coming off of that high note of Halloween 4, the fans were excited for the franchise again, and then the studios just said, okay, we need to make another one as quick as possible, rushed through it, didn't give a fuck, hired some asshole to write and direct the movie who couldn't care less about the Halloween franchise, some artsy bastard that wanted to make some sort of separate art piece that, you know, his own fucking interpretation of Halloween, instead of just sticking to the goddamn storyline. Mustafa Akkad should have absolutely put his foot down in that situation. Myers takes his mask off. He cries. The mask looks like shit. There's that man in black. Jamie Lloyd is a mute, and she didn't kill her stepmom or foster mom. It's a giant mess. They just undid everything cool that they did in Halloween 4 and made not only a movie that just didn't make sense within the context of the storyline, but was just a shitty movie in general by every stretch. Number 12 is going to be Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Now, these were difficult choices to make in a lot of ways. It became a little frustrating to organize a list because a lot of these could switch, you know. You could ask me on any given day and my entire order from 13 to 1 could be completely different. That's how varied these movies can be. So I did have a little bit of a hard time placing this one, but I knew it was going to be towards the bottom, if not the bottom. You know, Halloween 2 it's a little bit above Halloween 5 in the fact that I feel like it's a better made movie. I just don't know that it's a better Halloween movie. You know, Rob Zombie tried something different. And points to him, and he, you know, after doing his remake of Halloween, he didn't want much to do with the series after that. He had kind of creatively done his thing, and he had a problem with working with the studio too. They were kind of up his ass the whole time, so he didn't really want to deal with it again, but he was kind of given a green light to make any movie he wants, basically, as long as it's got Halloween 2 on the title. And that's exactly what he did. Michael Myers is a homeless bum wandering the streets wearing a hoodie and no mask. There's a white horse. Sherry Moon Zombie's in this movie again, even though she died in the first one, because of course it's a Rob Zombie movie. Why would we not have Sherry Moon Zombie? Fucking idiot. Of course you gotta have her in. And look, she's eye candy, so I don't mind necessarily, but it made for a weird story. And then they had the two different cuts. There's the director's cut and the theatrical release, which basically made Laurie Strode two completely different characters, which I actually kind of like. It's like pick your own adventure. But you know, either one, she's not the most likable of characters. Did I say Jamie Lloyd? I mean Laurie Strode. It all blends in at this point. You know, Jamie Lloyd's in the movie, not Jamie herself, but the actress, you know. So, yeah, it was just a trash movie. It just didn't do anything for me. I thought the opening scene that took place in the hospital was actually kind of exciting, reminiscent of Halloween 2, the original. And, you know, I liked where they were going with that, but then he just went off the beaten path. And then Michael talks at the end in the director's cut. It's just a big nope. Loomis sucks. All of it's a giant nope, but it just comes in a hair over Halloween 5 because it's actually a movie that doesn't suck the soul out of you to watch it. In at number 11, dare I say, will be one of the most controversial picks on my list. Certainly the first one that we will come across here. And it's going to be Halloween 3. Now, I know this has gained quite the cult following as of recent years. This has become a bit more of a fan favorite than it was in years past. Halloween 3 got a bad rap from the beginning because it was trying to call itself a Halloween movie. Halloween 3, it was enumerated. It was a sequel to Halloween 1 and 2, but it didn't have Michael Myers, or it barely had Michael Myers. He was on the TV, so he exists in film form in this movie world. Halloween 3 is a very good movie. It's a fun little 80s cheesy. I don't even know I would go the route of calling it cheesy. It's still got John Carpenter behind the wheel. It's still got John Carpenter's music. There's a lot of great things going for Halloween 3. It just shouldn't be called Halloween 3. And in my opinion, as good of a movie as it is, I don't hold it in high regard as one of my all-time favorite movies or anything. Nothing to do with the fact that it calls itself Halloween 3. I admit, as when I was younger and I was getting into horror movies and getting into this series, Halloween 3 was the bastard son, right? It was the bastard child of this series, and I resented it for that reason. But I was young and I was dumb, and I didn't have the wherewithal to look at it as a movie onto its own, to look at what they were going for with trying to do an anthology instead, and then just realizing that that wasn't going to work, that the fan base wanted Michael Myers. So this movie, gets a bad rap for that, and that's not why I dislike it. It's not a movie that I'm going to watch all that often. Is it bad? No. It's a good little 80s horror movie. It's a good Halloween themed movie. It's good to watch around the Halloween season. It's just not heavy in my rotation. Sorry. I don't care about this old evil witch guy putting curses on pumpkin masks and fucking, the druid fucking Stonehenge and all that sacrifices. It just, meh. Number 10 on my list probably should have been ranked much lower and would be on a lot of your lists. It's going to be Halloween Resurrection. And oh my, does this deserve its place as one of the worst Halloween movies of all time. I have it ranked above the others because I can actually watch it. I don't hate it. I have an appreciation for anytime a movie franchise attempts something different and them attempting to go with the found footage route or just using the cameras and their live streaming. And this was, this was before Twitch and all that stuff, where live streaming is like a thing, it's a household thing at this point, but back then it was still relatively unique, and it was a unique route to go for a horror franchise. Nobody had really attempted that before. Found footage had been done, but nobody was just like, hey, we're gonna live stream this horror slasher's house, and then the slasher is gonna come back and get them. So I love the premise, I really do. And look, it's not a good premise for Halloween 1 or 2 or 3 even, but when you get all the way down the line and you're on the 10th, 9th, 10th, 11th movie of this fucking franchise already, sure, bust out some fucking cameras, webcams. Let's see what can happen, What sucks about this movie is, everything they did with Laurie Strode, trash, absolute trash. They ended her in just the undoing of the Halloween H2O end. That was a pretty intense ending to Halloween H2O, and very final. And then they just followed it up with some convoluted ass story, killed Laurie off, made her like a nut job in a fucking nut house, with a teddy bear or some shit. It was just a mess. Then the characters were annoying as fuck. None of them were likable at all. And then you got Busta Rhymes, who I like. I come from hip hop culture. I appreciate Busta Rhymes. I don't appreciate him karate kicking Michael Myers. I even liked the scene where he was wearing the mask. I thought that was unique. He's going to scare Michael Myers. And I even liked that he came face to face with Michael Myers in the Michael Myers costume, chewed him out, and Michael just walked away. A lot of people hate that scene. I don't take it as Busta Rhymes made Michael a little bitch. I took it as Michael is not a sane person, and he was curious and caught off guard by another person dressed like him, and was more, that's interesting, than, oh, I'm gonna kill this motherfucker. He'll come back to it. He'll kill him later. But for the time being, I thought it was unique just to kind of put Michael in that scenario and see how he would react. And I liked that he didn't kill him instantly and was just kind of like, that's strange. All right, I'm going to humor this for a little bit, because he's still got that childlike mind. He poses dead bodies. He plays with them to a certain extent. He's not without a sense of humor at times. So I think that, and not without a sense of curiosity and playfulness. So I think that part fell into that. But overall, just everything that they did, the ending, it was just all poorly executed. A good concept, poorly executed, very 2000s, very dated, and just kind of a trash movie that was a clear cash grab for the franchise, and not any kind of passion project or a film made to please the fans. In at number 9, we have the first of this brand new trilogy here to make the list. It's Halloween Kills. A lot of people like Halloween Kills. A lot of people don't like Halloween Kills. It used to be considered the worst of the, compared to 2018. But now, it might be better than Ends for some people, but it's not for me. Halloween Kills is a garbage movie. The writing is abysmal. The writing is probably the worst in the entire franchise. It might even be worse than Rob Zombie's Halloween, the first one, as far as writing goes. Just the dialogue that people are using. The evil dies tonight was horrible. The fact that they're chasing this short little fat balding guy because he's an escaped mental patient and they think he's Michael Myers, so the mob chases this guy. Horrible, just simply based on the fact that he doesn't even look like Michael Myers. Like, if you're gonna write this, and this sounds like a good idea to put in a movie, let's make the guy at least plausibly be Michael Myers. Let's make him look like it. And maybe they wanted the stark contrast to make to show how delusional the mob was and how bloodthirsty they were. But to me, it's a bad look. It just looks like they didn't really take any care to make the movie make any kind of logical sense. Myers is invincible. He's killing everybody and their mom. He's full supernatural. He's at his peak supernatural. If there was a supernatural element to Michael Myers, it's on display full force in this movie. You get the end scene where he is beat down by the mob, right? And they got their little weapons, their irons and bats and stuff, and they beat him lifeless. And then fucking Laurie's daughter stabs him, and they thought he's finished. And the motherfucker just gets right back up and puts his mask back on and proceeds to myrtleize everybody. Now, I get it. The title of this movie is Halloween Kills, and this movie was designed clearly to be the movie where Michael just is a beast. He's just out in rage mode, killing everybody. The most kill-filled, brutal movie of the entire franchise. If that was your goal, you succeeded, but you also told a shitty story, and it just, to me, it didn't work for me at all. Laurie was barely in the movie. She's in the hospital the whole time. I just thought the writing was shit. Visually, artistically, everything looked great. The writing was just dog shit. The next one on this list could also plausibly be seen as controversial. Coming in at my number 8 on my list ranking the Halloween movies is Halloween 2, the first sequel to the original Halloween movie, also produced by John Carpenter, not directed by this time, but Carpenter was involved, did the whole score for the movie, wrote the script, and for me, this movie is just not anywhere near as good as the first one. I know a lot of people love it as like a 1A and 1B, and they watch them as a double feature on Halloween, and all of that's fine if that's what you like. I find the second movie to be boring, though I like the hospital setting. It's empty and dreary, and it just, Laurie doesn't really talk the whole time, and she's laid up in a bed, and I like the chase. I like the theory that Michael's going to hunt her down in the hospital. I just thought it was kind of boring, and I didn't like the look of Michael Myers. He doesn't move like he did in the first one. He looks shorter than he was in the first one, and a little puffier in the face than he was in the first one. Which is, I'm not criticizing puffy faced people. I don't dislike it because he has a puffy face. I'm just saying that's not my Michael. Loomis was a little bit, he was probably the best part of this movie. But still, he just wasn't prime like he has been in other movies, in my opinion. And, the ending, very definitive. But because the movies just continued after that, I don't know that the ending works for me either. I don't know. There's nothing inherently bad about Halloween 2. It's just boring to me, I guess is the best way to put it. It just doesn't work for me. Number 7 on my list for Halloween movie rankings is Halloween H2O. Now, this was a movie that I like the theory of in general. Like, I like the idea that Michael is back 20 years after the original to once again pursue Laurie Strode. I like that Laurie Strode was coming back. That was something I remember being excited for, because when H2O came out, I believe H2O was the first movie to come out after I had already been a fan. I came into my fandom in the probably not too long after Halloween 6. And then, when H2O came about, I was just like, I was already a diehard fan. I was like, fuck yeah, Laurie Strode's coming back. I didn't mind that they were going to skip past the sequels and just present this as if it was a direct sequel to Halloween 2. I liked the concept of everything. I just felt I didn't like the setting. It didn't scream Halloween to me at all. Now, something that I will argue for this franchise and will probably come up in future rankings here. I appreciate when a series has 13 movies in the series, right? In the franchise. It's okay to play around a little bit and try different things. And so as much as I respect that they took the movie over to California and they set it in this private school and that sort of thing, it just didn't work for me as a setting. It didn't feel Halloween-y enough for me. I thought the score was a little too orchestra and a little less, what made Halloween great with just the score in general. It felt, I guess, it felt reminiscent of movies of that time, which, I believe not only was the movie written by the same person who wrote Scream, but I believe the score was made by the same person who did the score for Scream. So it has that very epic orchestral sound to it rather than the synth of the original Halloween series. So and even the guitars would have been, that were in Halloween 6 would have been a better move than this. But and Michael Myers' mask was a problem too. I don't get as hung up on the mask thing that happened in H2O that a lot of other people do. But it does overall if it brings the look of Michael Myers down, then that brings the likability of Michael Myers down in that movie. And, I liked the look of that guy. He was skinnier than they had made him in the last couple movies. Back to form. I thought, he looked the most like the original in the way that he was physically shaped and the way he physically moved. The mask was shit, right? And I didn't really like Laurie Strode's character. She's kind of the strong, bitchy, powerful woman, leading the school and everything. And she was such a timid, woman who's gonna bake pies in the first movie. So she just, to me, seemed like she would grow up to be a happy grandma. In making cookies and stuff and just, being a good mom and stuff, and not this bitchy business professional type woman that's hard on her kids and stuff. So I didn't like the tone that they took with that, and I didn't like the cast. I didn't like these kids. Josh Hartnett, it was very 90s, very late 90s. It just captured that whole feel. And in a time capsule, sure, we need a Halloween in all of these different generations of filmmaking. I like that. But this one it didn't quite get there for me. The ending, I will say, basically, I didn't like the entire movie. All the way up to, I liked the opening sequence, I guess, where Myers broke into the house and stole the paperwork on Laurie. But other than that, I didn't like anything up until the very end. I loved that third act where it's just Michael and Laurie. The school's locked down, and Laurie's there to finish the fight, right? And Michael's in pursuit. I just thought that was a great ending with a classic, holy shit ending with the head being cut off. This was the first movie that I saw in theaters, the first Halloween movie that I saw in theaters. And when that ending, I was I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked at that ending. Laurie just cuts this motherfucker's head right off. Too bad they ruined it in Resurrection. Number 6 on my list has a higher ranking than it has any real business having, and that's going to be Rob Zombie's Halloween, the remake. And, this is one of those movies that on any given day, you could ask me tomorrow, and this list could be completely different. And this was a movie that might end up a lot lower than this spot. But I'm going to go ahead and give it this spot because, one, when it came out, it was a breath of fresh air. The franchise of Halloween was kind of in the gutter at that point. It was all but dead. In fact, Rob Zombie was highly criticized for even bothering to touch such a dead franchise. That's laughable now, right? In 2022 with fucking 13 movies. But Rob Zombie touched it, and, I was a fan of Zombie at the time. I still am, his music. I love his music. He's a fantastic artist. And as for his movies, have always said this and will continue to say this. I think Rob Zombie's one of the most fantastic horror directors. The way that his movies look and feel are amazing. It's his writing that is absolute hot garbage. He needs a writer. He needs somebody else to write his movies for him, and I think he could direct one hell of a horror movie. But, you know, I went into this hopeful, and look, this movie has horrible dialogue. The especially the white trashiness and the stepfather that's a bum who, let's be real, he's never going to get a chick as hot as fucking Sherry Moon Zombie in real life. You know, some fucking chubby schlub sitting in the fucking recliner eating snacks. He doesn't even have a job. Like, that bitch ain't going to go out and be stripping, trying to earn money to provide for this dude. She's going to be fucking some high-class guy, right? Better looking guy at the very least. So none of that unless because I think maybe they were trying to paint the pictures because he was on some sort of like insurance payout or something, that maybe she was just kind of with him because of that. You know, he pays the bills at the very least. So I didn't like that they explained Michael. There was just a lot of bad in this movie overall, but I'll tell you what I like and how it got to here. Despite the horrible dialogue, despite the white trashiness, despite all the Rob Zombie isms that make this movie bad, I thought the kid that played Michael in the early part of the movie was fantastic. He's a cute little chubby kid with his long hair, and I loved that kid as an actor. Did I like that they explained Michael, or that he was a sympathetic character as a kid? No, not really. But he was cute. He was a cute kid, wasn't he? I liked the imagery, you know, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Rob Zombie's directing, so I love the way the movie was shot and the way the movie looked. I liked that Michael Myers was more brutal. I didn't like that he was so big. Myers was tall and skinny and lanky, but he wasn't like a giant hulking beast, you know. I feel like somewhere along the way, Rob Zombie confused Michael Myers for Jason Voorhees. You know, they tried to Jason Voorhees Myers up even in the earlier sequels, you know, 4 and 5, he had like shoulder pads on. And then in 6, he was a big dude. So Halloween H2O kind of went back to the skinnier Michael Myers, the lankier. But I liked the violence and the brutality in this Michael Myers, and I liked just his presence. He was scary as fuck. I loved the mask. I like Danielle Harris making a comeback to the Halloween franchise, playing Annie. Was it Annie that she played in this one? And, you know, I liked, you know, even though the end kind of became almost a shot-for-shot, beat-for-beat remake of the original, I thought he did a good job for that. So overall, like, it's a very watchable movie, and it's not the abomination that like Halloween 2 was, or even that Rob Zombie kind of gets hated on for now. It wasn't that horrible of a movie. The opening act was the worst. If you can get past that, and you can get past the fact that we're now giving you a full explanation of Michael Myers and why he's evil, then if you can handle all that, then this is not a bad movie to get through for the rest of it. But still not a great movie. Number 5 on my list, and I'm surprised myself that this movie made it all the way up to number 5, because this will be a controversial one as well, because I'm sure a lot of you are going to have it way lower, if not rock bottom, and that is Halloween Ends. Might just be recency bias to a certain extent, but Halloween Ends falls into that category for me of I appreciate that out of 13 movies, they tried something different. You know, in Halloween 4, they did the thing where Jamie Lloyd was... you know, she had the knife at the end and stabbed her foster mom, and it was like they played around with this idea of, they teased it, of evil can be passed, and it just felt like they made the attempt to explore that idea again in this movie. that evil, never dies. It just changes shape. That whole thing that they kind of started to pound home, and that the town itself creates the monster and all of that. Like, they played with a lot of really fun ideas in this movie. And though they kind of did Michael dirty, he wasn't in the movie for very long. He, gets beat up by a kid, a punk ass kid. Which in my Halloween, I did a full review on this one actually just recently, and in that review, I kind of explained at least what makes it work for me is that I felt like Corey was, starting to be possessed by evil, and Michael was obviously weakened, not weekend. I don't know why I said it like that, but Myers was in a weakened state. Even though at the end of Halloween Kills, he was at his most powerful supernatural ever. So I don't know how we got to him being a feeble old man in 5 years. But that's kind of how I justified it. He was weak. Corey was getting stronger. Corey younger. Michael older. Michael was not his Halloween Kills supernatural form at that time. So that's how I can justify that. And, them killing Corey at the end kind of just made the whole movie pointless, honestly. But I liked a lot of the ideas they explored. I thought they did Laurie Strode so much better in this one. Like I said, I didn't like her in Halloween H2O. I thought it wasn't the same, didn't feel like the same person. The strong business-minded, the business professional, kind of bitchy, overbearing mom. Didn't quite jive with the sweet, innocent girl that we met in the original Halloween. And though people change, and though Michael Myers trying to kill you can change you, I just didn't buy it, right? And even then in Halloween 2018, they kind of made Laurie a Sarah Connor character, right? Where she's all locked, cocked, and loaded and ready to go. And she's a prepper and has a compound and all that stuff. Like, that's another direction you could have took it, but I didn't buy that either. But I did love this one. She's baking pies. She's being a good grandma, taking care of her granddaughter. She's sweet on a dude in town, but doesn't really, a little too shy to maybe ask him out or to fully, I don't know. This Laurie Strode seemed to be the most... made the most sense for what Laurie Strode would look like as an older woman from the original movie. It doesn't make sense in context either, because you don't go from Sarah Connor and then in 4 or 5 years you become fucking, Mary Poppins all of a sudden. It doesn't work like that. It should have been the other way around, where she was a sweeter old lady just trying to move on past her life in 2018. Then after the events of Halloween Kills, had fortified her home and was ready and locked, cocked, and loaded because she knew he'd come back again. You know what I mean? Like 40 years, you're Sarah Connor, but after just 4 more, you're fucking Mary Poppins. It doesn't work that way. I didn't like that, but I loved her in this movie. I loved Allison in this movie, and I even liked the storyline of Corey. I felt like they tried some great things. I think this movie would have been better suited had they just ended the trilogy and then did this as a 4th movie, or combined Halloween Kills and Ends and then made this the 3rd movie. And it just didn't have Laurie Strode in it, or, however they wanted to do it. I don't feel like this movie fully realized the full potential of what they were going for, but I appreciate what they went for, and I appreciate it a lot more than most people. Now, from here on up in the rankings, these are my favorite Halloween movies. These are my go-tos. If I'm going to watch a Halloween movie, it's likely going to be one of these 4, unless I'm doing a deep dive or I'm just feeling reminiscent of fucking Halloween 5 for some reason. I'm most likely going to turn to these 4 movies, starting with this one at number 4, Halloween 6, or better known as just Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. This was the 6th movie in the franchise, the first to just drop the number, right? The Curse of Michael Myers. A lot of people fucking hate this movie, and I don't understand why. This is one of my favorites, probably because this, I think, was my first, like, this was my gateway into Halloween. I think I started becoming a horror movie fan and diving into these movies around the time that Halloween 6 came out. So I would have been aware of it. It would have been fresh on like the video store shelves and that kind of thing. So I think that's where my love of this came from, is just being one of, if not the first Halloween I actually saw, my first exposure to Michael Myers. I think a lot of people just hate this because of the whole thorn cult thing, and I don't blame you. It's a stupid storyline. I don't stand by it or endorse it in any way, shape, or form. You don't have a fucking cult trying to control Michael Myers, and Michael Myers is not your fucking hitman. He's not your assassin that you just send out to do your dirty work. You know what I mean? He certainly doesn't father children. All of that can just go suck a fuck. You know what I mean? But if you are willing, hear me out, if you are willing to look past all of that, then you have yourself one hell of a Halloween movie here. You have one of the better Michael Myers. And look, before I move forward, the Cult of Thorn thing, like, look, we're 6 movies into the movie, Plus we got dealt a shitty hand in Halloween 5 where the fucker wrote the Man in Black into the script and didn't have any intention of, where it would lead or anything. But you're also 6 movies in. Like, you can't just keep a guy in white mask kills babysitters. Like, you gotta expand the lore a little bit. They just fucked it up. That's all. But Michael was great in this movie. His mask looked better than it had in previous movies. He was more brutal. He was more scary, more intimidating. I felt like they had set the scene on Halloween perfectly. I felt like this was Halloween, like in a Halloween, like it took place on Halloween in the Halloween universe. It looked like fall outside. The color grading was great. There were kids trick-or-treating. There were pumpkins. There were, like, all of that was good. I liked the idea that Halloween was kind of banned in Haddonfield, and it had been long enough now where the town was starting to push back. We were getting into the rebellious part of the 90s, the later half of the 90s, where everything was, counterculture and anti-authority and pushing back against the system. And this was sort of leading into that, where, these kids were going to take their holiday back. We're not going to hide from Halloween anymore because of this fucking Michael Myers guy. And I like the radio shock jock, and I like that little thing in the park that they did or whatever, bringing back Halloween, the live radio show. All of that worked for me great. I thought the kills were fantastic. I thought Michael was a lurker in this one, always in the shadows behind the scenes. There's that scene where, just using sheets hanging up in the yard, they were able to create suspense and fear right there, and they used the score really well in this movie. Both the producer's cut and this, I thought, were just great. Both of them, have their flaws, obviously. The producer's cut did less to be an abomination. This was also, Dimension got their hands on the Halloween franchise by this point, and they wanted to really amp it up and make it, a movie, not just a story. They really wanted to bring the action and the kills and the brutality and the guitars, and they really wanted to amp it up, and they did. But like I said, if you can forget all that Thorn cult stuff, plus I'm a Paul Rudd fan. Everybody hates on Paul Rudd. He's Ant-Man. How you gonna hate Ant-Man? So yeah, if you can forget all of that bad stuff in this movie, I feel like you can pick out an hour's worth of a very fantastic Halloween movie in this one, and scary. Number 3 on my list is Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. This movie is an absolute fan favorite by, I think, everybody across the board. This probably was my number 2 for the longest time, and could be my number 2 if you ask me tomorrow. This is another one that, fluctuated a little bit. As I put this list together, it made it to 3. It didn't get any higher than that, but Three's respectable amongst 13, and for a fourth movie in a franchise to be that strong. Halloween 4 just went back to basics. After Halloween 3, everybody hated it because it wasn't Michael Myers. They disguised Halloween 3 as a Halloween movie. They didn't tell the fans at the time. They didn't say, hey, we're going to do an anthology now. People just showed up at the theaters and were waiting for Michael and didn't get him. So the producers decided to backtrack, and they wanted to bring Michael back, and they brought him back in spectacular fashion. The only thing that really sucks about this movie is the mask itself. The look of, and Michael Myers has like shoulder pads, kind of, you can see it. They literally said they put shoulder pads on him under the suit in an attempt to make him bigger. Can't you just find like a skinny, lanky guy? Like, you know what I mean? So the look of Michael Myers, and that is enough to hold down a movie and bring it down even more significantly for others. But looking past that, like, this movie was damn near perfect. It was essentially a retread of the original Halloween movie, beat for beat. Michael escapes, Michael gets his clothes, Michael's stalking, a relative. It's just Dr. Loomis is on the hunt, and in the end, Michael dies. He gets shot. It's all it's very closely tied to the first Halloween as far as the way that it's structured and everything. And to me, that was a good idea. You want to bring it back to basics. You want to do, after the fans revolted after Halloween 3, you wanted to give them exactly what they want and nothing different. Exactly what they're looking for. You want to give them Michael Myers. You want to put him in the setting that you're going to appreciate him most. You want to do with him that, you don't want to do him dirty. You know what I mean? You don't want to give the fans any reason to be upset. The best way to do that is take the movie that they already like and just turn it up to 11. You know what I mean? Just redo it and amplify it. And it worked. It worked great. Jamie Lloyd, nobody missed Laurie Strode in this movie. Maybe a couple people did, but people latched on to Jamie Lloyd really quick, to the point where Danielle Harris is considered a horror icon to this day. People love her. She's beloved. People threw a fit when she wasn't in Halloween 6. They replaced her just because the studio didn't want to deal with her, didn't want to pay the money she was asking or whatever. And that's bullshit, and that's, shitting on your fans when you do stuff like that. But the audience clung to Jamie Lloyd. They liked her character. They liked Rachel. They liked the character of Rachel, and the fact that both of them survived to the end. Then that twist ending, that's what solidifies Halloween 4. All of that shit is to say, all that was fine and great and would have produced a great Halloween movie as is. But the twist ending where Jamie Lloyd is standing there with a knife, bloody, she killed her foster mom. They show the actual scene where she puts the mask on and you're looking through the eye holes again, just like the original Halloween. It was just done masterfully. And Loomis points the gun at her because he knows, he sees the evil's transferred. He understands this. He studied this for years, and the sheriff's like, no, don't do it. And Jamie's just standing there, just like Michael did at the end of 1. Fantastic. It's a shame that they never followed up on that. I think fans would have been on board to see where that went. But they just shit on it and did something completely different. If it was me, I might have explored the idea of making Jamie a killer in Halloween 5. And Michael would have had to have been in it, but maybe in ghost form. I don't know. You can't just get rid of Michael, but I would have explored Jamie being a killer in that one. Maybe some Halloween Ends type shit in part 5 instead of that abomination that we got. I don't know. In at number 2 is Halloween 2018. This was a movie that probably would have been much lower on my list, but after a recent rewatch, I really didn't see anything that I didn't like about this movie. In fact, I was kind of giddy for this movie the whole time. There's some stuff that I really don't like, and I think that's what held it down for me on my initial watches. And what would have had it ranked lower on this list. Not too low. It wouldn't have been like at the bottom or anything, but just lower than the number 2 spot. Was just the whole Dr. Sartain bullshit. I didn't like him. I like what they went for with him. He's like the equivalent of Dr. Loomis, but like an evil version, and I don't mind that. That's a fine character to introduce into a Halloween series, especially on the 11th installment of the franchise. Introduce an evil version of Dr. Loomis. Hell yeah, that's fine. But I didn't like that guy put on the mask. I didn't, I would have even been okay with that, the plot of him, helping Michael escape, that kind of thing. Pushing him to meet Laurie Strode face to face just to see what would happen. All that's fair. But just him putting on the mask, I just thought that was atrocious. And that was just a step too far in that whole scene, really. That whole middle section with the bus crash and the cop car and Sartain, throws Michael in the back seat with Allison, and it's just doesn't work for me. But everything else, I felt like this movie, far and above Halloween Ends or Kills, paid attention to what fans appreciated. The writer of this movie was there to do fan service, not just to make their film or whatever they wanted to make. There's a lot of great attention to detail. I didn't address this in Halloween Kills, by the way, so I'll say it now. That throwback to 78, that flashback scene that they did in Halloween Kills, chef's kiss. One of the greatest scenes in Halloween franchise history. But that was really all it had going for it. But I felt like we got a lot of that kind of stuff in this movie. Great attention to detail. I thought Myers' mask was phenomenal. It's the best mask. Probably not in the series. I like the original mask better, but it's still it's probably the second best mask. Absolutely. And they brought Michael back to form in a lot of ways. He was more human-like. He was skinnier. I like that they showed him as an old man with the balding head. I like that they showed Michael with his mask off. Normally that would be a bad thing, like they did in Halloween 5 and that kind of stuff. But I like that, it humanized him, and then it shows that putting the mask back on kind of puts him back, brings the evil out of him in a lot of ways. Like he was just locked up at the beginning in that mental asylum, whatever, on the big checkerboard floor out there. Just minding his business for 40 years, not bothering anybody, you know what I mean? And then that mask comes into play and he gets all riled up again. But I like the way that they showed him. I like James Jude Courtney portraying Michael. I thought he did a fantastic job, the way he moves. They were able to keep Michael as much like the original as possible, but to the point where even the guy who played Michael in the original movie played Michael in this movie for a little bit as well. They actually Nick Castle played Michael in some of the scenes, so that was fantastic. And I liked that they modernized him, made him more brutal, because you gotta up that at this point. You can't get away with doing a movie that doesn't have a lot of gore or anything in 2022, you know what I mean? You have to, if it's a slasher movie, it has to bring the slasher. But Michael, he did he lurked in the shadows. They did a lot of, they did that one shot, which probably wasn't a one shot, but they did the one shot tracking shot where they followed Michael down the sidewalk and there's kids trick-or-treating and he bumps into the trick-or-treating kid and then he cuts through the yard and he picks up the hammer and then he goes into the house, and that was just so well done. I felt like everything that they did in this movie, and then even to the, I felt like him pursuing all the little things that he did, like when he was chasing that one kid that was with Allison that hit on her and then got embarrassed. He was wearing like the devil costume and he got killed and hung on the gate. That was a great scene. And then just even into the final, where the finale, where Laurie is stalking Michael throughout her house, and you can see like by the blood trail that he's in the house, but he's hiding in one of the rooms and in the shadows. And I like the callback that they did where Michael threw her off of the balcony and she landed, and he watched her land, and then he turns his head for a second because he hears Allison come in, and then when he looks back, she's gone. And just those little callbacks and stuff to the original, it was masterful. This was such a well done movie that just some of the dumb shit, the Dr. Sartain was dumb. The fact that I didn't like the podcasters in general, I thought that was kind of a silly, stupid opening and a weird way to kind of bring us back in, but I thought that Laurie being Sarah Connor all of a sudden was kind of a stretch too, because she's just such a sweet, innocent soul in the first movie that it just, I was willing to be on board for it, but I just didn't buy it necessarily. But overall, I just felt like everything they did, they tried to bring Michael back true to form. I felt like he was very creepy and stalkerish and lurking in the shadows, and there was a lot of Halloween-y atmosphere and vibes to everything. And the final showdown with Laurie Strode was satisfying. And Allison, and I didn't like Laurie's daughter, Allison's mom, so much in this one. But everything else, I felt like nailed it. Did very well. Besides like the Sartain and stuff. So this one ranks very highly on my list, number 2 now. But it could change, it could move down to like a 3 or a 4, but I don't think it would ever go any lower than that. Number 1 on my list of ranking the Halloween franchise is Halloween 1, as it should be on anybody's ranking, right? The original Halloween should be at number 1 for everybody. I cannot imagine you are a Halloween fan and there's a Halloween movie out there that you liked more than the original. I will say that, I did give it a little bit of thought. Halloween 4 is a pretty goddamn good movie. Not quite as good as Halloween 1, though. Halloween 2018 had a lot of the same great things that I loved about Halloween, the original Halloween, but upped it, upped the violence, upped the kills, modernized everything. But again, it wasn't quite on par with what John Carpenter was able to do so masterfully in the original Halloween. Just everything about it, the way that he shot that movie is just, it's a masterclass in itself on how to direct a film. The way that it starts off wide and slowly closes in throughout the movie till it's almost claustrophobic, where Michael could be anywhere, lurking, blurry in the background, barely noticed, driving by or something, you know what I mean? Behind a tree, just slowly watching. To now he's pursuing you. You're trying to get away and you can't. It's intense. The fact that they play with the supernatural, is he or isn't he? Is he the personification of pure evil and has supernatural abilities, or is he just a man? He walks and moves like a man, but Dr. Loomis paints him up to be this fucking devil in human form. And, he's feels pain, obviously, like it can slow him down. It affects him, but it doesn't stop him. Nothing stops him. He keeps coming like the fucking Terminator. As a matter of fact, I would say James Cameron's original Terminator was probably heavily inspired by Halloween, as was every other fucking horror slasher movie at the time, but none of them did it the way that John Carpenter did. Carpenter did it with class. He did it without showing all the gore and the violence, which, in later years, that became the hallmark of slasher movies, and that's fine. That's fine that's the way that the movies went, because it's inevitable. You always have to up the ante. You can't keep doing the same thing forever. But at that time, the scares this was probably inspired by Hitchcock, right? Psycho, the way that he was able to create these kills and these scares just based on the tension that he's able to build and not necessarily the violence itself. It was great. The score, fantastic. Carpenter has always got good scores. If you listen to the music in his other movies, it's all similar. He's using the same instruments and the same, everything's Carpenter-esque, right? But this one is iconic. That music is iconic. Not just the theme music, but the other little keys, like the doodaloo, you know, that you hear when like Michael like appears out of nowhere. And then just the way that that's even filmed, the way that mask comes out of shadow like that, or like, you know, when he's pursuing Laurie, it's like doo-doont, 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 like just ding, 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 doo-doont. It just, oh, it's so fucking good. And like, you know, we take it for granted in all the other movies later, but this was the first time it was done. You know what I mean? And Michael himself, this had not really been done before. There's been slashers before, there's been killers, but Michael really was kind of a shape. That mask was so blank and so creepy and eerie, and the way that he was filmed in the background, the way that he was out in daylight. There was no, it's not even like, oh, it's daytime, we're fine. No, he created fear and uncertainty around every corner, and just he underlined that, you know, at the end of the movie where he showed the shots of all the different scenes empty in the, you know, that were seen throughout the movie, and they're all empty, and you just hear Michael's breathing over the music, and it's like he could be anywhere still, you know. And he was shot 6 times, and clearly he's not human, but what was he? Is he? What is he? You know, was he the boogeyman? Just goddamn, what can't be said about that movie? And you know, look, they did it on a cheap budget, so the production value of it could have been, you know, it could have been stepped up a little bit, but it's almost masterful in itself as well that Carpenter was able to do what he did with the money that he had. And Dr. Loomis was so good in that. Laurie Strode set the tone for what a final girl was in movies. She invented the fucking final girl. She was the final girl. That's why she's the scream queen, or was at the time. And Dr. Loomis, the fucking Van Helsing to Myers Dracula, the guy chasing him, hunting him down the whole time. Like, it was just such a, and it was so simple. Guy in white mask stalks babysitters. That's it. That's all we're doing. And Carpenter was able to take that, run with it, and turn it into something fucking amazing that to this day, 40 some years later, is still talked about, still relevant, still inspiring, still an absolute classic, and will be forever and ever and ever. That's my list, y'all. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out with me. Let me know down in the comments. You can feel free to put your full ranking in there if you just want to do your top 3 or your top 5. Let me know where you disagree with me. If there was anything I said that you fundamentally disagree with, or if you just disagree with my ranking, like I said, just don't be a dick about it. But we can absolutely have a conversation, a friendly debate, analyzing the Halloween series. Such a fantastic series overall, just a fun, interesting, just rich of content franchise. I absolutely love it. Halloween will always be one of my favorites, and I hope to God that it never ends.